To discuss water and its crucial role, we're joined by Mohammed Mahmoud, the Chief Executive Officer of the Climate and Water Initiative. Mohammed, great having you. How is technology changing the relation between people and water resources?
Well, technology offers one pathway to address many of the challenges related to water security in terms of are there technologies that we can leverage to improve water quantity? And that relates to technologies that have been around. Obviously, desalination is a big way that we can try to introduce or augment existing water supplies, at least for coastal communities. But there's even technological aspects of how do we optimize delivery of water resources that we have available and make sure that it arrives or reaches where it is needed the most.
I want to consult you. I want to stay on technology, and I want to talk about geoengineering. Do you believe that geoengineering can increase the availability of clean water for human consumption or farming?
I mean, there's multiple thoughts on this, right?
Yes.
And a lot of it has to do with all of it is constrained with the reality on the ground. Geoengineering can be helpful if the conditions are conducive for it to help. And what I mean by that is different regions and different countries or parts of countries have different levels of accessibility to water supply. And so there are limits in terms of how geoengineering can maybe enable a better access to the supply available. But in some cases where that supply is constrained or there's issues of transmitting that supply to where it's needed, it might have a limited use.
And we are also seeing pictures of plastics, and there's a big issue around plastics and microplastics. Do you think there is any way to solve these issues in the short term?
Yeah, this issue of microplastics has sort of recently gotten a lot of attention,
Yes.
and rightfully so. And I think we're in the stage, at least in terms of those that are maybe in the water utility industry, are trying to wrap their head around this question: is how do we address the presence of microplastics? We know now we're getting more information and data on their presence. The question becomes, what is the appropriate level of action? And unfortunately, we're still in the phase of information gathering of how much is available where, right? It's different depending on different parts of the world and level of proliferation, but also what is an appropriate level of action? Do we have tools and technologies enough to address it in such a way? Because again, they're microplastics. They're abundant in very, very small amounts.
Interesting, and I'd like to turn the tables on clean energy, because it's another of the big discussions of our time, and they tend to tax water, quite in some cases, and I'm specifically speaking of lithium, right? But it extends to other rare earths and other critical resources to enable an energy transition. Do you believe there's a way around this? Are we probably getting the equation wrong, or could it be improved?
Yeah, here's the thing about renewable energy sources or, going towards clean energy and the energy transition. Water is actually, I like to call a secret ingredient. Of course, when we think of solar, at a very minimal level, you need water to keep those solar panels clean and active in terms of absorbing all that sunlight. But one of the other areas of alternative forms of energy that has gotten a lot of buzz and attention lately is this idea of green hydrogen, right? A form of hydrogen production that essentially has no emissions. And green hydrogen is 100% dependent on water. It's based on electrolysis. The idea of taking a water molecule, splitting the hydrogen and oxygen piece out, and utilizing the hydrogen part. That's the green hydrogen. So if we're talking about green hydrogen, which is where a lot of countries are moving in terms of the energy equation of things when you talk about the energy transition, you cannot address that without addressing water security, because that is where you're generating your energy from.
I see. And what do you think is next? What is the great next issue that we will probably be discussing, you and I will be discussing in the future around water?
Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depending how you look at it, a lot of the issues thematically are still the same. We are facing an issue of insufficient water supply, not just by itself, but in the face of growing water demand. So the issues and solutions and challenges pertain to how do we amplify our water supply sources available, and that's where things like technology come in. We talked about desalination, weather modification, other sort of more interesting scientific applications. But then the other piece is, how do we manage our demand? And this is coming from different sectors. Agriculture, which has a huge water footprint, water for drinking needs, water for manufacturing and processing, and energy production, as we just mentioned. We have to balance both sides of that equation. Getting more water isn't necessarily the solution. It helps if we were able to, but you really have to manage your water demand as well.
Mohammed Mahmoud, great having you. Thank you for your time.